Tester of Montana is recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Brown, and thank you for being here, Chair Powell. We appreciate your work in a difficult situation, but I think you've done a really good job, and so thank you for that. Look, at success at the Fed on your mandate for strong employment and stable prices is critical for small businesses on Main Street, for farmers, for ranchers, for Montana families. You follow all the metrics. From your perspective, where is the economy at now, and where's it going?
The economy is growing at a healthy, sustainable, solid, strong pace, and that's one thing. Second thing I'd say is the labor market is very strong and quite tight still. 3%, 3.7% unemployment for the last 24 months. That's the longest period since 50 years. And the third thing is inflation. Inflation was too high. It's come down very sharply since the beginning of last year. If you look at the 12-month number, the headline number has come down from the fives down to 2.4. And the core number is at 2.8. I think it was at 4.9 a year ago. So these are big declines. So we're in a very different place, in a healthy place. We're going to use our tools to try to keep that strong economy, keep that strong labor market while we continue to make progress on inflation.
One of the areas where there has been inflation, and I don't exactly know where it's at now, but food rose quite rapidly. And by the way, I'm a farmer. We didn't get much of that. In fact, we didn't get any of it. Prices now compared to what they were a year ago are actually off. Compared to where they're 6 years ago, they're up. But compared to where they were a year ago, they're down. And so my question to you, Chairman Powell, is there anything you can do specifically to deal with food costs?
So I'm telling a farmer his business, but if you look at the food cost to the consumer, part of that is commodity costs, and that was partly spiked because of Ukraine, grains and oil and that kind of thing. But the rest of it is a lot of costs in the supply chain, from when it leaves the farm to get collected and processed and trucked around and then put on the shelves and then the stores. All of those costs are just part of the general economy. So as the labor market cools off from its overheated status 2 years ago, you will see, and you have seen, food inflation flattening out. And so, the really high rates of inflation have come down. The prices, of course, have not.
Correct. I would just say that cattle's doing better. Grain actually has dropped in price at the farm gate, and I don't want to get into that debate with you at all because we probably agree, but it'd take too long, take too much time. We got other stuff to talk about.
I'd be learning from
you. You've discussed in previous hearings the impacts that the pandemic, shutdowns, and supply chain issues have had on economies globally. How does the U.S. economy look today compared to our competitor nations, particularly China?
Well, I start with the advanced economies. We're doing the best of anybody. We've got the strongest growth and the lowest inflation of the advanced economies. China is a whole different story. China is having significant difficulties with its economy right now, and they're in a very different place than we are.
And so, to repeat that, what I heard you say is that the economy of the United States is basically in better shape than any other economy in the world?
Any other major economy, yes.
Yes, okay. Look, one of the other challenges out there is housing in communities all across this country, whether you're in Montana, whether you're in a city in Ohio. Workforce housing in particular is a top priority, top commodity, so to speak. Plenty of folks, great organizations are working to address this. I meet them every day, and I appreciate the work they're doing. But how do these housing supplies issues show up in the data that the FOMC uses to make decisions?
So housing prices don't go into the data. Housing starts and renovations and things like that are just business activity, and that shows up. But when it comes to inflation, we convert ownership into an imputed rent, and then we look at rents. Okay. And so that's how we look at all that. So we're not directly affected by changes in housing prices, but over time those will drive rents up.
So is it fair to ask, are there economic trends that you see for housing?
Yes. So there's two big things going on. One is we have this underlying shortage of housing, and it's due to things like difficulties of zoning. A lot of the close in to cities places that were already built, and so more difficult to get zoning, more difficult to get people and materials and all that. That's one thing, and that's not going away. Then there's just a ton of things happening because of the pandemic, because of inflation, because of higher rates. And those are, in the short term, those have really, they're weighing on the housing market. But as rates come down and that all goes through the economy, we're still going to be back to a place where we don't have enough housing.
Once again, thank you, Chairman Powell, for your work. I very much appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman Brown.